In the early morning of January 31st, 1921, a Coast Guard lookout at Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, peered through the mist at the treacherous graveyard of the Atlantic. He saw a magnificent five-masted schooner, the Carroll A. Deering, hard aground on the Diamond Shoals. Her sails were set, and she looked like a phantom rising from the surf. But as the sun rose, the terror began. Due to heavy seas, rescuers couldn't reach this ship for 4 days. When they finally boarded the Deering, they were met with a heavy, unnatural silence. The vessel was in perfect condition, but not a single soul was on board. The 11 crew members had vanished into thin air. It was a scene of frozen time, a ghost ship that had sailed itself into the jaws of the reef. The scene in the galley was the most spooky detail of all. Food was laid out on the stove, prepared for the next meal. Tables were set with plates and coffee, as if the crew had been interrupted mid-bite. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, and no evidence of a storm. It appeared as though the entire crew had simultaneously stepped off the deck and into the abyss. As investigators combed the ship, they found that the 2 lifeboats were missing, along with the crew's personal effects and the ship's navigational equipment. However, the captain's cabin was a mess. The logbook and charts were gone. The most unsettling find was a set of spare boots left on the floor, arranged neatly as if the owner expected to step back into them in a moment. The voyage had been troubled from the start. The original captain had fallen ill and was replaced by Captain Willis Wormel, a crusty veteran who didn't trust his new crew. During a stop in Barbados, Wormel complained to a friend that the men were disorderly and that he feared for his safety. He whispered that his first mate, McLennan, was a dangerous man who had it out for him. The mystery turned paranormal when a lightship captain off the coast of South Carolina reported an encounter with the Deering days before the wreck. He claimed a man with red hair and a foreign accent leaned over the railing and shouted that the ship had lost its anchors. Curiously, this man was not the captain or the mate. The Deering then sailed on, ignoring all signals. Was it a mutiny? This was the primary theory of the FBI. It was believed the first mate had led a revolt, killed Captain Wormel, and tossed him overboard. But if they had taken over, why would they abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship or a dangerous reef? And where did they go? No lifeboat from the Deering was ever found, and no crew member ever surfaced in any port. The piracy theory also emerged. In 1921, the Atlantic was crawling with rum runners and pirate ships during Prohibition. Some believed the Deering had been captured by a rival vessel, her crew kidnapped or murdered, and the ship left to drift as a decoy. But the cargo of coal was untouched, and pirates usually took everything of value. The Deering was a clean ghost. Then there was the Bermuda Triangle connection. The Deering had sailed right through the heart of the infamous triangle on its way north from Brazil. Some researchers suggested a magnetic anomaly or a temporal rift had snatched the crew from the deck. This would explain why the food was still warm on the stove, while the people who cooked it were miles or worlds away. The US government took the case so seriously that 5 separate departments, including the FBI and the Navy, investigated. They even looked into Bolshevik sabotage, fearing Russian agents were seizing American ships. But every lead hit a dead end. There were no radio distress calls, no debris, and no witnesses to a boarding. The ocean had simply swallowed 11 men. A spooky piece of evidence appeared in April 1921. A man found a message in a bottle on a North Carolina beach. It was a frantic note claiming the Deering had been captured by an oil tanker and that the crew was being held prisoner. Forensic experts later determined the note was a hoax, written by a man looking for fame, but it added to the atmospheric terror of the case. The Cape Hatteras curse was also whispered among local sailors. The Diamond Shoals are a place of shifting sands and phantom lights. Some believe the Deering ran into a ghost storm, a localized weather event that exists only for one ship. The crew, driven mad by the pressure and the sound, might have leapt overboard in a fit of panic induced by the sea. In the decades that followed, the Carroll A. Deering became the gold standard of Atlantic mysteries. She was a heavy ship with a dark history. Every few years, a skeleton would wash up on a distant shore, and the world would wonder if it was Captain Wormel finally returning from the deep. But DNA testing was a dream, and the bones remained as anonymous as the sea. The mystery remains unsolved because of the galley paradox. If the crew left in lifeboats because the ship was grounded, why was the food still cooking? A grounding is a violent, crashing event that would have knocked pots off a stove. The fact that the meal was undisturbed suggests the crew left before the ship hit the reef or that they were taken while at the table. The ghost navigator theory suggests that after the crew vanished, the ship sailed itself for over 80 miles. Winds and currents would have had to perfectly align to guide a massive 5-masted schooner through the narrow channels of the Outer Banks without a single human hand on the wheel. It was a miracle of the macabre, a dead ship finding its own way to a graveyard. Today, the Carroll A. Deering is a legend of the high seas. The wreck eventually broke apart under the pounding surf, and its timbers were scattered along the coast. Some locals claim that on foggy nights, you can still see the silhouette of 5 masts moving silently across the Diamond Shoals, a shadow ship looking for a crew that has been missing for over a century. The Deering represents the indifference of the ocean. It is a story of set tables and missing souls, a reminder that a ship is just a shell, and without a human heart, it becomes a haunted house on the water. The mystery is a puzzle of first mates and phantom notes, a story that begins in the sun of Barbados and ends in the grey mist of Cape Hatteras. Was it infrasound? Some scientists suggest that certain wind patterns over the ocean create low-frequency vibrations that cause intense nausea and hallucinations in humans. This ghost frequency could have driven the crew to abandon ship at a state of mass hysteria, convinced the vessel was about to explode or sink, even as it sat perfectly calm on the water. The Carroll A. Deering is a masterpiece of maritime horror. It is a story of red-haired strangers and empty boots, a mystery that proves the Atlantic doesn't just kill, it erases. The 11 men of the Deering didn't leave a legacy. They left a void. They are the permanent guests of the Diamond Shoals, drifting in a frequency that we cannot hear. As you stand on the beach at Cape Hatteras today, looking out at the white foam of the breakers, remember the Deering. Think of the meal that was never eaten and the captain who feared his own crew. The mystery is a heavy weight on the history of the Coast Guard, a case that remains open in the files, but closed by the impenetrable silence of the deep. The final mystery lies in the anchors. If the red-haired man was telling the truth and the anchors were lost, why were they found perfectly stowed on the wreck? This suggests the man on the lightship was a phantom or a liar, part of a deception that went beyond mere mutiny. It was a theatrical disappearance, staged by the sea to baffle the land for eternity. The story of the Deering is a reminder that the graveyard of the Atlantic is always open for business. It is a place where time and space behave differently. The ship was a relic of the age of sail, a beautiful anachronism that was taken by the modern world's shadows. The Deering is the queen of ghost ships, a mystery that sails on the winds of our nightmares. The final chapter of the Deering is written in the shift of the sands. The Diamond Shoals are constantly moving, burying and unburying the secrets of the past. Perhaps one day, the lifeboats will emerge from the dunes, or a brass button from a captain's coat will glitter in the sun. Until then, the crew remains deleted, and the ship remains a sovereign of the silence. As the moon rises over the Outer Banks, the legend lives on. The Carroll A. Deering is a testament to the unknowable sea. It is a story of 5 masts and 11 ghosts, a mystery that defines the heavy air of the North Carolina coast. The ship is gone, but the why is still caught in the rigging of our imagination, flapping like a tattered, ghostly sail. The story ends where it began, with a lookout in the mist. He saw a ship that shouldn't be there, and we are still looking for a crew that isn't there. The Carroll A. Deering is the ultimate cold case of the Atlantic, a mystery that proves that sometimes the most terrifying thing about a ghost ship and the ghosts, it's the emptiness they leave behind in the world.